Welcome to Broadcast Interrupted. This is part 2 of our conversation with Hannah Schassner.
If you haven't already heard part 1 of our conversation with Hannah Schassner, it's already streaming on all our audio and video streaming platforms, such as Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and a few others. Follow us on Instagram at broadcast.interrupted for links and updates on our upcoming conversations. See you on the other side.
Es ist ein Ort, der heißt überall und nirgends.
Es ist ein Ort, der heißt überall und nirgends.
Die Zeit ist nicht heute, die Zeit ist überhaupt nicht mehr.
Die Zeit ist nicht heute, die Zeit ist überhaupt nicht mehr.
Denn es könnte gestern gewesen sein, lange her gewesen sein. Es kann wieder sein, immerzu sein.
Denn es könnte gestern gewesen sein, lange her gewesen sein. Es kann wieder sein, immerzu sein. Es wird einiges nie gewesen sein.
Can you describe Heilig Blute? That was in 2018. Can you tell us a little bit about it? I mean, of course, we've seen the trailers countless number of times and it always cracks me up. But
I regret not, I think I've told you so many times by now that we should just do it again.
Yeah, you're not the only one. Actually, so many people tell me you should do that piece again because, it was an amazing work, and it was let's say it was different. I need to say it like that because I don't think that everybody loves it like I do or you do, but most of the people really liked it a lot because it was so cynical and so formal, but in its form really, really funny. And we decided not to play it anymore because actually the text is not really famous. It was based on a text of a really great author. Her name is Issa. The piece's name was Heilig Blute, and well, the first 10, 12 shows, it worked like there was a Mund-zu-Mund propaganda, that people talking, you need to watch that piece. And after 12 shows, you need a name. And we had 12 shows, but not the name. And that's why after 12 shows, we decided, okay, it's a lot of work to set the stage up, and there are no people coming.
Dass sowohl die Bewohner von Hunshaupten und Hatzhofen als auch die Bewohner von Gögi, Deuern und Undorf unmittelbar gefährdet sind.
Der junge Götsch hatte keineswegs den Eindruck, dass es die Herren bedauerten, dass die Wölfe ausgebrochen waren.
So the audience could watch themselves watching themselves and watching the piece, and the performers were so close. They really were 20 centimeters away from the people sitting there, and the people were sitting there on wooden banks, uncomfortable situation, and I guess the piece took 2 hours, and it was hard 2 hours. I need to say that. But we wanted that. We wanted the people to sit there and feel not comfortable because the people, the audience were the fourth figure, because actually there are 4 figures in the book, and we had 3 performers, and the 3 performers were old Nazis, and there's that 4th figure that's the son of one old Nazi who's not there in that piece, and the audience was was set up like that 4th figure.
Okay.
So that's why they needed to be so close.
But there was also a fifth figure, no? The house.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I would like to think that way. I'm pretty sure even Andy would like to think that way.
The house. It was the first piece I rehearsed where I said like I can't rehearse without the stage. Normally there's that situation that you rehearse in rehearsal rooms and you have something like the stage, like a citation of the stage. So, But that was the first piece that when the stage designer Hannah von Eif and me talked about the setup, I was like, okay, I'm so sorry, we need to find a room where we can put the house in to rehearse, because I can't rehearse a piece without the stage. Because all that empty spaces between the empty parts in the house were so important to direct a piece, because I used it a little bit like film cuts, you have wood and then you have nothing in between the next wood. And that nothing in between was like a frame for pictures. So the pictures could be rearranged behind the wood.
Okay.
And with pictures I mean like performers.
Yeah.
Okay.
Image basically. Yeah. The image of.
Yeah.
So they get to hide behind the house when they want to, and then they appear in those gaps which you kind of create over there. Okay, and so I just want to jog back a little and know. So you said the book Heilig Blute is from Gisela Eisner. Gisela Elsner. How did you choose this script then? What goes into choosing one?
Okay, well, in that case, it's really a nice story, because the dramaturg and musician of that project is a friend of mine. Her name is Sylvia Necker, and we did a piece before. That piece that we did before was called Sie Heil, Hitler wie sie keiner kennt. It was a piece about women becoming Alice Weidel or Hitler. Like women, like actually the story was about two actresses who said we want to play Hitler. That seems to be like fun. And then after they decided to do that, they are getting closer into the identity of Hitler. Yeah. And not just the identity, but also the thoughts and the mindset of Hitler. And that was a piece that Sylvia and me did together. And she knew what I liked after that. And then she came with the book and she said, Hannah, here, do you know Gisela Eisner? And I was like, no, who the fuck is she? Who is she? And she was like, you will love it. Read it. And if you love it, we will do that together. Okay. So that happened.
This book, is it a comedy? Like how Gisela Eisner has written it, or?
It's grotesque, I would say.
Okay.
It's cynical humor, and the structure of her language makes everything really, really funny, because she's having sentences like half over a page. Okay. And she's referring to the beginning of sentences somewhere in the middle and then going back again. And she's like having that distance perspective on these people that she's writing about. And these people are so simple based. Okay. And she's creating the idea that behind this simple based mindset is more. Even though she's just telling the simple basis of the mindset. And that's how she criticizes those Nazi figures.
Okay. Kind of. She keeps referring her own self, or sort of this dialogue that you said. She keeps going back to the first line and keeps coming back. So she keeps doing this constantly to bring this aspect that you just mentioned out?
I think so. That's how I read her. And she's not really famous. Not a lot of people know her, and I even didn't know her before. But I read that novel, and then I read a lot of other of her novels, and I would say she's one of the best authors I read. But the problem is that it's not consumable how she's writing, because the structure is so complicated, and language as material, she loves it. I guess she's addicted to material, the structure, and the quality of language.
So this is very interesting, because what this brings me to kind of understand is that you made a book by an author, as you mentioned, whose writing may or may not be so consumable. So the experience of reading it itself is not so consumable, right? Or there's no access to sort of that aspect of it. So you adapt something, you adapted that book and made it up into a play, which, as we now keep discussing, many people wanted to even come back. So you suddenly use another medium to provide access to something that may have not been so easily accessible otherwise.
Yeah, but I need to say it was really, really important for me also that the theater production is not so accessible. I need to say it, I wanted to dedicate that piece also to the author who wrote the novel.
Right.
That's why I decided, for example, not to have a simple figure structure in the piece. I left the sentences like they were. I didn't make like from the novel structure, I didn't write a dramatic piece out of it.
Yeah.
I let the novel structure, and I just spread the novel on 3 performers. And like telling is next to speaking in that piece that we made out of the novel.
Okay. So were there any more sort of key adaptations that you made in this translation? So one device that you used is to spread the text as is amongst the 3 characters. What were the other things that you did when you kind of adapted this play into?
I guess the material fetish that is referred to in the novel is really seen in the piece, because we're working with a lot of stuff in there.
Yeah.
We're having glasses, and we're having nails, and we're having hammers, and we're having beans, and we're having lollipops, and we're having
fur,
and we're having wool, and we're having hair, and all that material that she describes in her novel. These men really are freaked out with eating beans and eating sausages and eating, and that's why I try to work with material in the piece, but separate it from its original meaning. So, for example, we had beans, but they didn't play with it as beans. They played with it as snow, for example.
Okay.
But you heard them talking about beans, and you saw beans on stage, but they used it as something else. And that was some kind of how I
So sort of auditory versus visual disconnect within that scene. That is how you change the meaning of what the symbol behind what the object is.
You mean like, because the disconnect is basically that the text and the language structure is dry, but at the same time the visual information is really, really rich.
Okay, get it. Now, this also reminds me of the Chekhov's gun principle, where every element that is there in the play must be there if it has a role to play. Otherwise, it should not be kept anywhere on the stage unless it kind of, I mean, every element is a sort of character in itself playing its role. So
Yeah, that's something, I guess that's my...
Do you follow that?
Yes, I totally follow that.
Okay.
I don't like stages where stuff is that is not used and it doesn't mean something. I'm not trying to build like a film set on stage where something is just there to make a picture. I know that audience has so much power to create these pictures without me showing it to them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why for me everything that is on the stage needs to be played with.
Okay.
And that means, for example, in Heilig Blute there was a gun. They never touched it, but they always watched it. They always looked at it, and they were always focusing it. And that means like they are playing with it. And also in Kleine Leute there was a large row of books.
Okay.
And in some moment you thought like, okay, it's just like a metaphor for like knowledge. But for me it was quite sure, okay, it is that metaphor for knowledge, but also I want the actress to play with it. So use it as material. And that's why I thought about, okay, I want that. How could I do that? Okay, and then there was that scene where she's climbing into that wall of books and destroying the books, pushing it away, the books, and she's like buried under books then. So everything on stage is material to play with.
And it has to be played with.
That's me. There are so many people who think they're different, but that's me.
Okay. And then I want to just...
But wait, I want to just add something. You don't do it as, let's say, the principle in itself sounds really rigid, no? Like Chekhov's gun. You have it on the stage, or if you mentioned it in your first paragraph in the book, by the end of the chapter, you have to shoot it or something. It sounds really rigid. But I remember Kleine Leute, we had, the stage was full of pieces of paper that looked like they were just scattered and thrown around. But it was kind of specific that the actor, that the angel would go and pick certain pieces up. And then I remember these awesome, he would throw it and watch it go, as if it was, something sort of divine.
It was a story.
He had to throw it a certain way too. And that to me makes it like, in case people think that it's very rigid to have such a principle, I just wanted to add that while you do it the way you do it, it's always not as rigid as it may sound. It always was very sort of difficult to understand. Like nobody could see, I couldn't see something on one of your stages and go, oh, there's a gun, or oh, those books. But there are 2 actors and 250 books. But it turns out they actually use 80% of them. And in so many different ways. Because the girl, at some point, I think she's the director, the character of the director, at some point she begins selecting books. As if it's a library. She's like, yeah, this is important. And then she goes, wait, what is this one? I need this too. And she just rearranges the shelf for a while she's speaking. And
like unconsciously she's starting to rearrange it as like that's her inner structure. I need to do something. Okay, I rearrange books.
I would like to talk a little bit about the details of the house. So, like everything.
Let's talk about architecture.
Yeah, a little bit about the paint that you put on the wall, the house itself, the windows. How did you start kind of choreographing that or designing that entire space?
Oh, I wish that the stage designer could talk about that. Her name is Hannah von Eif, and she's a brilliant stage designer. And I came to her with the idea, let's build a house. And she was like, great, yeah, let's build a house. And then I was sure about two things, that I wanted it to be out of wood and that I wanted it to have no rooftop. Mm-hmm. And for me, for the first time, I thought about the house as really a closed house with no in-between spaces.
Okay.
And then Hannah started to design or like figure out, and she was like, okay, to be true, we have a storage problem with your idea.
Okay.
And we need to think about something else. So function came out of need. So she was like saying, okay, if we do it like that, I can build it at my place. Also, otherwise I can't build it at my place. And let's see it like that the house itself is more like the symbol for a house itself. And then we watched together Lars von Trier Dogma.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I love that stage. I love that idea. And I want to make a piece with that idea once. I will do it, I know it, but...
Wait, you're talking about Dogma?
I don't know, not Dogma. The one with...
Doghouse? No.
Dog Will.
No,
Dog Will.
The one where the frame is just
the
put
plan.
as an idea on the floor. And
yes.
I love that idea. It's so good. And also the idea that everything is what is behind is happening. Also that idea. And so we started to invent, Hannah created the concept for the house. And I was like, for the first time, I was me, I want the house. And then I saw the script or like the architectural concept. And I was like, oh, that can be so good. That can be so good, because then I can like also direct the outside. And then all my concepts changed again. And then she built the house. And she built like these different parts. I guess it were 8 parts.
Okay.
Which were connectable through like sticks on top.
Okay. All right.
Like braces.
So that
some braces and some frames.
It will like be safe. So, and then that's Hannah. She's like loving details. And that's so brilliant about her. She loves really small things and really huge things. She always likes to change the picture of normality. That's why she asked me, like, what do you think we do a window inside the house? And I was like, oh, I liked it because I can direct with it. And she was like, what do you think we do a really small window? And I was like, okay, we can work with that. And then I said, like, but let's do it somewhere where the people can't reach it normally. So she designed that window that was much too high, so it could not be used as a window. But we used it as a window, but every time we used it as a window, the people needed to climb up. And then also I had the idea that it might be funny to have one of those in-between parts which is much smaller than the others. And she was like, okay, I will design something that you can small that. Mm-hmm. And I was like, yeah, and I want that because I think it could be so funny if they have a lot of doors where they could leave the house, but they are always using that which is too small.
The smallest one.
The smallest one. And then that was my main door. And it was so funny because also repetition is a really interesting element in theater, because repetition is like creating humor and like involves the audience because they know what will happen. And I directed a lot of parts where the three of them tried to leave the house through that small in-between space at the same time. And that happens like 4 or 5 times. And it's always the same. And you see these guys, they are just not coming out of their mindset. And they're always trying it. I go there. Me too. I'm the first. Yeah. And then we put the house in the, it was so funny, in the rehearsal room. And the rehearsal room was as huge as the house. And really, the house was sitting there, and then there was so much distance to the wall, and I was like, okay, we will rehearse everything around when we're in the original theater. And while it was in the rehearsal room, the house was in the natural color that we bought or collected together, the wooden parts. And Hannah, she said something like, I want it to be darker. But for me, I was like, I don't know. No, maybe we just leave it like that. Maybe we leave it like that. We just bought it from Obi. But I'm so happy that she convinced me not to leave it like that, because actually also like I was a bit afraid that the dark brown of the house makes the contrast to the costumes that the performers
fur costumes,
the fur and the leather, all is dark brown, you know. And when also the house is dark brown, I was a bit afraid that they are not visible anymore.
Okay,
like they could like make camouflage in their own setting. And Hannah said like, but that's the best thing you can have. Like the house is the camouflage version of the costumes. They can disappear. And I was like, okay, then let's do it like that. She wants it and I trust her, and it was a really good decision. But the only thing, I was like wishing that the part of the house where the gun was would be not as dark. So the focus on the gun could be stressed on, you know? And that's why she had the idea to make like a holy circle around the gun. So the gun was in an edge.
Okay.
And the gun was here, you know? And she made it like
kind of a graphic.
Like a graphic around the gun. Looks a little bit like Holy Maria, for example. There are like Christian pictures of Maria or Jesus, like where those sun...
aura,
halo or something like that.
Basically using light to sort of frame.
And that's what we did with the gun there.
It sounds like you, Hannah and Hannah, put like you guys, I mean, when you describe your sort of the way you worked with her, it seems like you were super comfortable and you guys were almost on board and, you know, even taking each other's suggestions, and things were changing and getting better as it went forward. I just want to know, how do you choose, or how do you know that, yes, this is someone I can work with, or I can...
She just makes them work with her. All right.
No, I get to know people, and when I'm getting along with them really well, I ask them if they want to be in that or that position in the piece. And Hannah, I knew she was a director's assistant before in a piece where I was a dramaturg. And there I got to know her. And she started to study stage design in that time.
Okay.
And I asked her, hey, I like you a lot. And we felt comfortable to each other. And we spoke the same language when it comes to theater. That's why I asked her. And actually, it's like that. I get to know people from other productions, and then
you poach
I
them.
take them with me. Wow. That's not nice. And when it comes to actors, sometimes it's different. And sometimes actors, for example, come to me after they see a piece. They come to me and say, hey, I like your work. I would be happy to work with you once.
Fichte,
Tanne.
Fichte, Fichte,
Eine Kiefer.
Fichte, Fichte,
Blautanne.
noch eine Fichte,
Tanne.
Eine Douglas-Tanne.
Kiefer,
Eine Nordmann-Tanne.
Fichte.
Kiefer,
Noch eine
Kiefer,
Tanne.
Tanne. Tanne.
Fichte,
Eine Kiefer.
Tanne,
Eine Lerche.
Eine Zwergkiefer.
Kiefer,
Noch eine Kiefer.
Tanne.
Noch eine Kiefer.
Noch eine Tanne.
Fichte,
Noch eine Tanne.
Kiefer,
Weihnachtsbaum.
Eine Fichte.
Tanne.
Zwergkiefer.
Eine Zwergkiefer.
For me, it was horrible to sit in the house while show ran. I
But
did
still,
that.
you put your audience right in there.
Yeah, no, I
Sit
maybe
here
that's-
and learn about the Nazis.
no, maybe
Do it.
maybe that is an answer on a question that you had before to me. It was just horrible to watch people watching my work. I could not stand it. I really could not stand it. I was there once because Sylvia, the dramaturg, said, come with me, because the premiere I watched from above. We have like a position in the theater where
This was Landungsbrücken,
in
right?
Landungsbrücken, where you can hide from the audience. And
okay.
I was there with Hannah, the dramaturg, the stage designer, and we hold hands while the premiere. And Sylvia was in the house. And I guess on the third or fourth show, there was a space free. And she said, come, let's sit in there. And I was like, I couldn't stand it because I was so nervous that I could feel like they are hating it.
You thought the audience was hating it when it was going on.
Yeah, I always.
But I think what you're actually talking about is you built the play in a way with the house, with the direction around it, because we're talking about a house that is on a stage
in a house
which has produced a kind of a backstage, which is not a backstage, if I'm getting this right, because the people leave the house, which technically means they're still on the stage, but this time the audience is sitting inside the house.
Yeah.
So what is the backstage is the stage. The audience is on the stage. And whenever these people leave the house, they're still performing. Only thing, visually, it is the house that is the fourth character or the fifth character that's sitting there. And what I wanted to say when I started saying this, just so I don't lose my train of thought, is maybe you're talking about the fact that whatever tension you were going for was actually amplified. That when you yourself sat there, it was like, well, I wanted tension, but this is crazy.
Well, to be true, so many people told me that they almost couldn't stand being there for 2 hours.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because they were afraid that they would scream. And they all stayed. We had one show where 2 people left in the pause. And that unfortunately was the show where just 3 people were inside. So there was, after the pause, there was that poor lonely guy sitting in the house having a show just for himself. Poor guy. But they said that they wanted to leave because the tension was so high and because they couldn't stand the situation. But everybody stayed. Because
and it also gets a little it becomes extra tense, because when I saw the trailer, I see a sequence where the actor is right next to this person and is talking to this person or like saying a dialogue, absolutely not paying attention to the play, and you can see her body scream completely, and it was you could feel like this kind of
yeah, actually I guess that was the trick, that the people were so close to the audience, but the performers are not watching them at all. They are ignoring them. They are talking as if they weren't there, and you felt like I'm I'm just not there actually because they were so close and they are just watching over them. And that was the trick. I thought about should they watch the audience, but I got that might be so pedagogical if they're watching the audience. And I thought it must be much stronger to be there to witness everything. The story is really crazy and the story is really full of brutality and full of conservative mindset and full of that, you know, and craziness. And I thought that it might be better to ignore them. So and putting them into the position of being there but being ignored, like the junge Gösch, the fourth figure, is like he's there and he's walking behind them, not knowing what are they doing here, but not having the guts to do something against them.
Yeah. But and also I think this kind of, I mean, it sounds like, so you said the piece runs for 2 hours.
Yeah.
Right?
With one pause.
And how do you decide that pause? Because it sounds super exhausting. Because what I assume is you don't also actually want your audience to leave in the middle because they are so tense. So you give them that kind of a break, right? Like they say, okay, yes, I kept the temperature boiling, and now it's time to take a break, go outside, breathe a little bit, and then come back. So
the idea was because of two things. Actually, there is that unwritten law that after 1.5 hours, you should make a pause.
Okay.
Then the other thing is that I wanted a formal change. And I thought in the piece, because the first part before the pause is like performative. People are telling a story and you're not quite sure who is who. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the first part, the junge Gösch dies. Is shot by one of those alt Nazis, unfortunately, because the alt Nazi thinks that he's a wolf. He's not getting that. Oopsie! Now he's dead. And we could have decided to pass it there. Mm-hmm. But I wanted to tell what is so brilliant in a novel, how these leftover alt Nazis are dealing with the death of the guy. Because it's so absurd. And I decided to make the pause and then make a total change. I changed the formal structure. So after the pause, there were figures for the first time. And they changed the costumes a bit so that there were figures. And I rearranged the stage. So I told, in the first part, the audience was sitting in a circle, or not in a circle, in a quarter. Mm-hmm. Looking at each other, and the piece was playing in the middle or outside, or outside the house. And then we rearranged the benches and we made them like in a church. That means like watching one direction. And there's a large hallway in the middle, and you're sitting on these banks out of wood. It's so like in a Christian church, because the piece is full of Christian metaphors and of the big, like the problematic Christians' ideas of love and
enlightenment.
Yeah. And that's why for the first time we had like a stage in the stage. People watching one part of the house, and that was the house where in the middle we built an altar.
Yeah.
And the altar was out of lollipops. Because lollipops were the objects that we used a lot in the piece. The guys ate it. I guess they ate like 25 lollipops each show. And
wait, that's a dental problem. You get sued for that?
I guess I offered them to pay teeth cleaning. Really, I did. I offered it. I never paid it, but I offered it.
Yeah, that's good enough.
Yeah, but then, So that two ideas.
Okay. Now I think, so let's just kind of summarize this. When you say that there is a house within a house, there are 4 characters, and the 5th character is the audience, and somehow, despite all the tension and all this changing of gears between the first part and the second part and all that, it still is a comedy, you know? When you look at the trailer, you're still laughing. When you look at all the teaser trailers, you're still laughing. So this is a situational comedy of sorts, or is that what you would call
What
it?
is situational
And what
comedy
is
for you?
situational comedy for you?
Situational comedy for me is like when the people are playing funny stuff without showing that they are playing funny stuff. Try to be as dry as you can and doing your stuff really serious, but doing really stupid stuff really serious. That is situational comedy. And for me, it was really important to make that piece so funny. I wanted the people to pee in their pants while they watched that piece. And I knew that I could reach that when I directed really, really strict and formal. Because when you're making like that situational comedy and everything is so naturalistic, it will be like making fun about Nazis. Making fun about Nazis, you can. But for me, making fun about Nazis means to understand how the mindset of Nazis functions. And that's strict and it's formal and it has a clear value system. And that's why I thought like, okay, the form that I choose for the piece needs to represent mindset of these figures. And when I have that clear formal structure, like for example, they are always walking in the same direction. For example, they are always having this, they are really strict about, I take that, I take that, I take that. They are always behind each other. When they are outside, they always have the same spot where they come in. And the structure needed to be really clear.
That's form. Also a kind of repetition, actually.
Yeah. So that the text itself is not lost, or is not, or the story itself is not lost in a lot of happenings, events. Yeah. So
a lot of the events.
Actually, not much happens in that piece. We're having like 3 performers talking to each other, walking around, talking to each other again, having some beans at the wall, and doing that with the beans like again and again and again and again, but talking to each
Constantly.
other as if there is someone who's not allowed to listen to.
Okay.
Yeah. And all these pictures I took from, I read a book, Teveleit, Männerfantasie, and it's a really famous book, and it's about diaries of people from the Second World War, of soldiers.
Of soldiers?
Of soldiers.
Ah, great.
Okay.
I read that, and they were like explaining, for example, how they are in war, how they miss their wives, how they have sexual fantasies. And in these diaries, you really feel like that kind of, in German, it's a word, it's a really nice word. It's called Männerbünde. It's like man under man, man with man. And I took a lot of pictures from the diaries. For example, the 3 of them getting so close to each other and talking to each other. They are talking about, what should we eat today? Okay, yeah, let's eat beans. Good. As if they are in war and checking out the strategy to get the enemy.
The next attack.
Yeah, but they're talking about, what are we eating today? Okay, beans.
Yeah.
Nice. And taking themselves so serious. That's situation comedy.
That's okay. Nay, what do you think are these are the kind of extents to which it can almost go from being comedy to boil over and becoming this sort of tension atmosphere in a way, right? Like that's what it kind of starts creating. I'm trying to understand the extent of this device. You know?
Yeah, I'm quite sure I need to watch a lot more plays to actually formally be able to understand how you guys work.
Yeah.
Or what it is that the play is doing to me, or what effects, because when I'm in the play, I'm immersed.
But I need to say that my fetish with stage and form, like the form of the piece, is represented in how the actors move on the stage. I guess that might be my way. I hope that it will be my way sometime, because I still am a director who has not really found a style.
Right.
But I think, I guess my style is that I love working text, directing, and stage together.
Okay.
But it's also not very direct, you know. Like you just said, like you want to formalize the movement of your character as almost always as sort of surprisingly as you can, which is quite true with especially with Heilig Blute. What we can see, the thing that you said about the window, it is really odd in the trailer when you look at it, that guy poking his head out of that window, and it's clear, like in the trailer you can see the audience is behind him inside the house.
And he's looking outside, and he's showing his back to the audience and talking outside. And also, I love to play with what you're allowed to do in theater and what you're not allowed.
Why are you so comfortable when your character shows them their back? What happens? Why is it not a problem? Because growing up we thought, face the audience, smile, and
that's
say
the
your
form
dialogues.
of theater I learned.
Well, but not
Project.
smile, or?
Well, I don't know. When we were kids, they just said smile.
There was this face the audience and project from within and these kind of rules. Or
Yeah, and of course, there will always be people who appreciate that kind of theater more. And if we destroy these rules, we start thinking about the rules itself. So why don't I have a problem with it? Because I think showing one's back tells sometimes tells more than showing your face while it says, I would show you my back if I was allowed to.
Yeah, it also adds to the anticipation, right? Like, especially in Heilig Blute, people keep leaving the door or the house per se, going.
In Heilig Blute, it's not that special at all, because we are playing with what do you see and what do you hear and what you're not able to see, because we're showing it without you being able to see it, because there's a wall. That's why in Heilig Blute, I guess that was not a decision to show the back. It was just like, okay, so we enlarged every rule, so that's not a rule at all anymore for our show, because, well, there's not the typical space you as an audience watch, because the audience needs to move all the time. They need to do it like that, because people are playing behind them, people are playing in front of them, at the side, outside, where you just hear. So, but also the back, for me, showing the back, it's not about showing the back, it's more about turning away. And so if you, when the audience sees the back, it's not about I look at my back, it's more about I don't want you to see my face now. Maybe that's the idea behind it. For example, when something touches you on the stage, when you play, that something is touching you and you don't want to share your emotions, you turn yourself away. And why should I not direct it like that? Because that, as a human being gesture, is so much more power than telling it or like finding other solutions for it. So
Okay.
Kennst du die Geschichte von Kojo Abusi? Dem Mann, der ohne Papiere durch Berlin hetzt und als Jäger gejagter wird? Kennst du sie? In dieser Welt sind solche Geschichten dazu bestimmt, mit Opfern zu enden. Aber diese Welt erzeugt auch andere Geschichten.
Issa versus Illegal.
oh yeah.
I think that was one of a play which received wide acclaim, one of your most famous pieces, perhaps. So can you tell us a little bit about Issa versus Illegal?
Oh yeah, I can. Issa versus Illegal is a solo piece where my best friend and one of the most greatest performers, Miriam Mann, is performing a 1.5 hour monologue, just she, a chair, some videos, and she talking and telling a story to the audience. And why is it so famous? Because it's true. So the special thing about her on stage is that she's not playing at all, but it looks as if she's playing. But Miriam is really she's an amazing performer, I need to say. The piece is about a woman. She's playing a woman. Her name is Issa. That's why the piece is called Issa versus Illegal. And she's telling the story of her friend Kojo, who got killed by a racist person. And she's telling that story out of her perspective, the perspective of Issa versus Issa, to the audience. And while the piece goes on, the audience realizes that it is actually the guy who killed her friend and that she will kill the audience now. So it's a story about revenge.
Okay.
Oh, wait. You said the audience begins to feel like the murderer.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay, wow. Yeah, and actually it's very interesting because I think, again, one of the trailers that is available, there is this sequence where I think Ali is also playing the character, is there in the play?
But no, that was Illegal. And then we made a second show that was called Issa versus Illegal. So we started with Illegal. That was the story that Issa tells later in Issa versus Illegal. But so we're having the story, and Miri also plays in that piece.
Yeah.
Issa, she plays the same figure. And then we made like a second part where she tells the story again, but just out of her perspective, and where the story is going on.
Okay.
And this is all based within a German environment, right?
It's based in Berlin. It's based in Berlin, and it's based on a novel from Max Annas. He's a really nice author. He's writing thrillers, and Illegal is a thriller. And I remember that I read the book and I gave it to Miri. Hey, can you check it out? How do you think? And she was like, the story is so good because it's about a guy who came to Germany to work here. And it's like question of racism, but without the idea of all those pity refugees needed to come here,
right?
Because there was war. Because no, it was his decision to come to Germany to work as a historian person, as a historian, and
pursue a kind of personal.
as a black person in Germany, you deal with racism. And we use that story, actually, that thriller about that Kojo who watched someone murder a woman and trying to help that woman, but being seen there, and the real murderer ran away, but he was seen at next to the body.
Okay.
And now he is the suspicion person, of course, you know? And because he has no German papers anymore, he needs to solve the case on himself. But the police in the same moment is trying to catch him because they think he is the murderer of that woman.
Okay.
And that's the story in Illegal. And at the end of Illegal, that Kojo is killed by the murder he watched killing that woman. And in Issa versus Illegal, Issa is killing the murderer of Kojo, who also killed that woman.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you see, there is this, like, what I was bringing also a small attention to was the fact that there's Kojo in this one scene where he is with this microphone and he is kind of shouting at the audience or instructing the audience in a certain way, you know?
You watched the Inside Illegal film, yeah?
Yes.
And that performance was in the Römer here in Frankfurt.
Yes.
Because we got a prize for the theater. And we and while we got the prize, we showed part of the pieces. And that's why you see this really amazing building, these 200 people, and he's with a microphone. That's not the original stage.
Okay. I mean, but it was super interesting, you know, because at this moment...
Yeah, he shouts at
the audience. And then the audience is like these bunch of people who are right there sitting absolutely frozen, not knowing what's coming next at them. Why I find this interesting is because I want to just draw like some aspects, you know, like, so Kleine Leute, I saw it and I remember, and we discussed the idea of the director facing and directing the audience in a certain way. Heilig Blute, the audience sitting in the middle, the characters rotating around and kind of interacting, not interacting, but putting the audience in so much tension and so much pressure. And then if I look at Issa versus Illegal, or if I look at Illegal, this part of him shouting out, and then Issa versus Illegal, I can only imagine, because I've seen certain clips of the monologue, if there is someone giving a 1.5 hour monologue and there is an entire audience that sits directly in front of them, I can only imagine what it would take to captivate and immerse that kind of an audience. So I can't help but see a sort of link in the way the audience is constantly, I would say, I wouldn't use the word manipulated, but maybe, but constant captivation. Like there are these sort of effects or these kind of interactions that you create with the audience. They always are a fifth character or a fourth character in the play or in the piece. And then you create this kind of a situation. So how do you start to conceptualize this? Or is there a way in which you've thought about it?
That's so cool that you're saying that, because now I understood how I work. No, really, I didn't know that of course.
Hannah, he really wants that job. He wants to work for you.
Yeah, you're right.
I'm the one that's going to be left.
No, you're really right about that. I always direct the audience. Shit. I didn't realize that before, but you're so right about that. The audience also always is part of
No.
Forget about the actors. Yeah. You guys are the real actors.
Yeah.
No. Now that I'm thinking about it, also in Wir so, no.
Not so much.
No, not so much. We are closing the fourth wall there.
Okay.
You'd say it's like you're not talking to the audience. But when you say like we're closing the fourth wall, it means just like you're having your setup here and everything takes place here. But in each other piece, the audience gets a figure, is a figure.
Yeah.
You're so right about that. Because also in illegal, they are his friends. I told the actor, when you're talking to the audience, it's like a friend you want to tell you sorry.
Okay.
So the tone
and also it's like the audience is always the outside view. So I was like, they are your friends, but they are also like watching you and not believing you if you're telling the story correct.
Okay.
Because in illegal, I worked with a frame. I don't know if you saw that. There was a really huge frame in front of the stage, because there was the piece was going on behind the frame, but there was one figure, the bus driver, who sat on the side of the audience behind the frame. And the idea was because the figure is killed by being pulled in front of a bus. So the idea was the figure Kojo and the bus driver who killed him, unfortunately, because he was, they are telling the story together. And the bus driver is telling the story to make sure that he remembers right. And Kojo is telling the story to make sure that nobody forgets that story.
Okay.
And that was like, he's talking, we have a back person here again. Person with a bag.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Wow.
Talking with the back to the audience.
No, but the reason why I asked about the idea of
I just want to
this-
I just want to add, I think I have a secret fetish for people walking away from me with their back turned to me. It's childhood trauma, something like that. So I love it when in your plays they do that.
It kind of
Let's not analyze it any
brings up-
further.
Yeah, I was just saying.
Yes.
No, the reason why I spoke about this audience as the figure idea, because when I am part of an audience, I know that there is something that the director would have thought of with regards to me, whether it is making me a mere spectator or considering me as a figure which is part of the show. And but there is this sense of responsibility that if I look at a play and I am just the spectator in this, like I know that there is no kind of this active sort of immersion, that active immersion, not passive immersion, active immersion that I'm being asked for. I take solace in knowing that I can just sit there, get done, and leave. It's not the case. It's not the case.
It's not what I want from theater.
It's exactly, and that's exactly not the case when I saw Kleine Leute. And it kept coming back to me, and I thought I should speak to you about this because it was.
If someone were to ask you, would you say all art should be like that?
No. That would be not my task to do that first. And second, nothing should be like all. That's why we should not talk about what all should be.
Yeah.
No, but really, now I know why for me that's so important, I guess, because I started working in theater field as a dramaturg, and dramaturgs always ask 3 questions when we start with the rehearsals. Why are the people on stage? Which relationship do they have to the audience? And the third I forgot. And for me, always the relationship to the audience is the first question that I ask myself when I'm starting to love a material.
Okay. And and I'm, it's also like just about, there's something about feeling responsible at the end of something.
I'm so sorry for that.
No, I am trying to say I appreciate that I get, that is something that I get from that. At the end, when I go back and I'm about to go to sleep, if I'm constantly still thinking about what I just witnessed or what I just experienced, I think that's a situation for me is is winning there. You know, it gets there into the thing.
So there we go, guys. We hope you enjoyed the conversation.
That was part 2 of our conversation with Hannah Schassner. Please follow us on Instagram at broadcast.interrupted for more links and updates on our upcoming podcasts. We hope to bring you these every fortnight. Thanks for listening and see you guys on the next one.
Während ihnen hinterherlief, warf ihren Hinterköpfen hasserfüllte Blicke zu. Ohne nach rechts und links zu schauen, stampfte mit der Sturheit eines subalternen Befehlsempfängers, der es anderen überlässt, sich über den Sinn und Zweck seines Handels den Kopf zusammenbrechen voran.
Plötzlich stürmte eine Dogge mit gefletschten Zähnen aus dem Gehöft, dem sie sich genähert hat.